Thank you for joining me today. We're now continuing with part 2 of 4 for showing advanced formatting in Microsoft Word. Remember, I'm using Word 2016, but everything I'm showing you should also be applicable to the older versions back to the 2007 version of Word. So the first part we showed how to set up a template, and this is the template we have here. So refer back to part 1 in case you need to review that. But let's go on. So one of the first things I want to show you is it's very important to have your ruler enabled because this will help you with a lot of the formatting you'll be doing. So where you find the ruler, if it's not engaged on your version of Word, is you go to View, the View tab, click there, and then you have ruler here. You also have some other options like grid lines as well as navigation pane, but I don't like those because I like mine as clean as possible and have as much real estate as possible. Okay, so we have the ruler set enabled, so let's go ahead and we're going to talk about copying and pasting and the different options you have for pasting, but also we're going to look at auto corrections for spellings, as well as showing you the difference in pros and cons to tabs versus columns. First thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and open up a document that I'm going to copy out of, and I have it here. I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and remember, let's say we're working on a report. So we have this information. This is pediatric equipment, and I want to go ahead and copy this information and put it in my report. But as you can see, it's in a really funky font, and oftentimes that's what's happening is when you're taking content out of other documents and copying and pasting into your document, you're going to have different fonts and font sizes and all of that associated with these other documents. So I'm going to show you how you can keep the formatting that we set up for our template. So there's many different ways I could select all this information. I could do Control A. I could just highlight the area and scroll down and select everything. Or a way that I've learned that I really like to do is I go to the margin area and I triple click with my mouse in that margin area. And what that does is it selects all of the content. So then I'm going to go ahead and copy. And then I can close this document, and then I'm on the one that I set up for our template. So let's go to the Home tab. So what most people do is just Control V, which pastes it in, but that's not in the template format that we had set up. So I'm going to undo. The other thing they tend to do is go to that Home tab and just hit the paste button, and that's the same as the Control V, and as you can see, it's a different font. Callisto is supposed to be our template font, but when I click in this area, it's Gill Sans Ultra. So let's undo. So when you're copying out of different documents and you're pasting it into your templated document, there's a better way to paste it in. So you go to the Home tab, and on the paste option you have a down arrow. I'm going to click the down arrow. And then, as you can see, I have some options listed here. And as I scroll over each one, it shows me basically what it's going to look like. So let's go over these. The one that has a little clipboard with the A, that's saying it's going to paste in the text only. So all other formatting will be gone from the document we copied it out of. It will be fully in the font, margin size, everything for our template. So that's one option. However, there's another option. It's called merge formatting, and this is merging the formatting from the previous document to this document. So what it's going to do, and I'm going to click there, is it's going to, how we had certain words bolded in the previous document, it's going to keep those bold. However, it's going to use the template font, which is Callisto MT in this case. And also it appears that there was a page break because this little paragraph area then goes on to the next page. So let's undo that one. And let's look at the last option. So this is keep source formatting. So what this is saying is keeping the formatting that was on the source where we copied this out of. And that is definitely not the one we want. So since I like those different sections having the bold headers, I'm going to go with the merge formatting. But if I didn't want those bolded and I really wanted everything together and to strip out all other formatting, I would go with the keep text only, which is, remember, with the A. In my case, I'm going to go with the merge formatting M. Okay, and now I have everything in there. So those are the different paste options you have. And then we also have, I'd like to address the whole spelling issue, because being in EMS and the health profession, there are often words that we use that are not part of standard dictionaries. We can see one here, the infusate. So what we want to do is every time, if we have to use this word quite often and we don't want the red little lines underneath showing, meaning that word says it's a misspelling, we have to look and make sure that we have it spelled correctly. If we have it spelled correctly and we want to add it, we can just right click on the word, and what that will do is it will show us an option of how it suggests to spell it, and this is a different word. Or you could select ignore all, but the next time you do something else different in your document, it's going to show it as a misspelling again. So the other option you have is add to dictionary. It's important to realize, though, that if you add it to dictionary, in this case it is not capitalized, so it'll only recognize the non-capitalized words of infusate. Capitalized version, so like if you had it as a header or the beginning of a sentence, it would probably still see it as a misspelling. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the dictionary. And now, if it was in any other place, it would not show as a misspelling. So let me add something here. Oh, okay. So there I added it, and I added it with a capital letter, and it did not count it as a misspelling. So I guess when you're going to add it to the data dictionary, make sure it's in the lower case, because I found out the hard way. I had added inner facility with this capital case, and then when I type it with the lower case, it finds it as a misspelling. So that's a drawback of Word. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, so that's how you add words to your dictionary. So let's now talk about tabs versus columns. So one of the things I'm going to do that's going to make this easier to view is on this Home tab, you have this thing that looks like a backwards paragraph, and it's called the ShowHide. I'm going to click on that. And when I do that, I can see a lot of the basic code behind. So it's showing me where there's breaks, meaning paragraph breaks. That's these little symbols right here. And I have it after each one. But also I can see I have a page break. And if I had other things, so let me show you how a tab looks. So I'm going to click here behind the monitoring equipment. I'm going to hit the tab button. So if you were to turn that on and you see a little arrow, let me zoom in, little arrow like this, that means that there's a tab there. Let me zoom back out. And oftentimes, since we have 3 different types of equipment listed here, and we have all this real estate over here, this white area that's not being used, and if we want to utilize that because we want to save paper, for example, or it just makes it easier to compare the 2 different lists that way, what I've seen a lot of people do is, instead of creating a table with 3 columns, they'll tab it, or they'll use columns. And columns are preferable over tabs, and let me show you why. So I've tabbed over, and let's say then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move the next piece of equipment over there, and then I'm going to tab over, and then I'm going to copy this piece of equipment, and I'm going to move that over. Then what happens is, since that one's longer, it's going to go ahead and move it on to that next line. So then what oftentimes people do is they hit enter, or I should say tab, tab, tab. But as they're trying to move that over, it starts messing everything up. And then it's this constant, as you add more pieces of equipment into the list or makes changes, you constantly have to go back and readjust your tabs. So there's a better way to do that. So let me undo. Alright, so I'm going to show you a better way to handle that. So let's say we want to put these in 3 columns so they're easier to compare. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of this area, and what I like to do is not include that last tab, and that's because let's just say that after we get these in columns, we need to add a little thing across the bottom that we don't want in column format. We want it to go across the entire thing. Well, you need to have a paragraph little marker there available that's not inside the columns to be able to do that. So just always make sure you don't include that last little paragraph break. Okay, so I have the area selected. I want to create into columns, and I find it's best to have the complete area typed out that you want to include in the columns, and then you apply the column format. So then the next step is to go to layout. I want to go to layout. That's where I can see the columns, and I can click the down arrow and I can choose how many I want. Since I have 3 different types of equipment, that's why I go with 3 in this case. When I click that, yay, it's put into different columns. That's great. And remember, I had mentioned about not including that little paragraph break. Well, this is why. So let's say, see how it continues to go across? It's because I did not include that in the columns, in the area that I selected to make the columns. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, so the next thing that most people do, and I used to do this until about a year ago, I found out a better way to do it, is I think, well, this is the second type of equipment, and I want that to start the next column, so I'm just going to hit enter, and that's great, it goes to the next. But now this third equipment, I have other equipment above it that actually goes with the fluid resuscitation. So then oftentimes what people do is go there and click, and then it keeps changing it, and you got to keep hitting returns. Well, once again, there's a better way to do that. So let me undo. So the way to make your columns break exactly where you want them to, and then it doesn't matter how much information you add to each of the columns, is I want it to break right here where it says fluid resuscitation. So I make sure I click there in front of that. Then under that layout tab, I have breaks, and I click the down arrow, and they have page breaks and they have section breaks. We're going to work in the page breaks area, and what I want to do is I want to make a column break on that page. So I click on that one, and that's cool then, and it makes it break there, and I can see column break there. And then I need to make my next break right here at respiratory, so I click the down arrow for the breaks again, and I choose column. And that's perfect then, because it breaks it exactly where I need to. And then to make sure I go to the right spot to add things, it's really good to continue to have your ShowHide activated. But I can click here and I can add more stuff. And see, it continues in that column because I'm above the break. So let's go ahead and delete that. Okay, so that's how we can make really clean columns. There's other things we can do to our columns. We can readjust them for size, and if we want it to be smaller white space between the columns, that's why I said to enable your ruler. I can go up here with my cursor and I can just draw these in, make them a little bit smaller, and when I resize one, it resizes the other. So if I had 4 columns, it would do the white space between each of those. Okay, so you can adjust those the way you want, but the thing is let me turn off the ShowHide. That's a pretty good looking columns, but it's a little hard to read because it's like, where does one piece of equipment end and where does the next begin? So I'm going to turn that back on just for purposes so that you can see. What I want to do, and this is just to increase the professionality of my document, is I can add bullets. So let me select all of this information under monitoring equipment, and then under the home tab I have bullet options. And let's just say I want mine numbered. So I have the regular bullets, which are just more symbols, and then I have the number bullets, and then I have this third type of bullet, and these are if these were sub. So if, for example, if infant blood pressure cuff was a sub piece of equipment to neonatal blood pressure cuff, I would probably want to use this type because it's sub of sub of sub. But these are all on an equal level, so I don't want to use that one. And since I want numbering, I'm going to select all of that. I'm going to go to the numbering bullets, and then I'm going to choose the one I like. So maybe if I want it Roman numerals, and then I have other numbering, but I can also do ABC. But in my case, since I want to know the total number of pieces of equipment in here, or to make it obvious to whoever's reading my report, I'm going to choose a regular numbering, and I like the ones with the period versus the little parentheses looking thing. So I'm going to add that one. And what that did though is it really shifted things over, and then it's taking up more space, and that will be a bigger issue when I get into this second column. So what I can do is I can readjust these bullets. And another reason why it's important to have that ruler bar is, as you can see here, as I hover over this, it says first line indent. I'm located on the ruler bar. I can move that out, and I can make then the numbering in line with the first letter of my header. And then I can move the second one in, and I'm going to move it in 1.5 of these little ticks. And that just makes it a lot cleaner. So what I could do is I could go over then to this next list, click the down arrow, and it says recently used number formats. I can choose that one. That way I'm making sure I choose the right one. And I would have to do the same moving. However, let's say that I want this to continue the numbering. So this left off at 6, and I want this to start with 7. So the way I can do that is click on that number 1, then I right click, and then I have an option that comes up that says continue numbering, and I can click that. And then the next thing I can do is, oftentimes what happens is people go here and say, oh, I want to move this over as well, and they'll just move the 1. The thing is since I don't have the entire area or column selected, it's just moving for that first one. So I'm going to undo. A better way to do that is go ahead and select all of this. And don't worry about selecting these numbers because they're bullets, so they know they're attached. And I can move these over. So I had done 1.5 ticks on the previous one. However, on this one I have issues. And the issue is because 10 is 2 digits versus 9. I need a little bit more space. So this one I'm going to make 2 ticks instead of 1, and then that lines it up really nice. So there's also another easier way I can do this. I can just select a part of this, and then on the Home tab I have this Format Painter. I can click on that, and then I can go ahead and select this area, making sure I'm not including those little double dash lines. And what it does is that's the Format Painter, so it knew that since we had continued the numbering, it's going to continuing the numbering, and it's going to line it up exactly the same. So that's the shortcut of doing that. Alright, so I'm going to turn off the hide show. It looks a lot better, and now I know how many pieces of equipment I have here, but it's still a little hard to read. So let's change the line spacing between these. So I'm going to select this area, and then I can go to that paragraph tab, and here's where I had mentioned in the previous one about that don't add space between paragraphs. I want to make sure that's unchecked, and then I can decide if I just click up 1, it's going to add 6 points, but if I can also just add in numbers, so I could add in 4, and that makes it a little bit easier to read. So I can do that with each one of these. Paragraph, make sure it's unchecked, and 4. So let's see what happens when I use the Format Painter. So I Format Paint, I want to copy that one, and then I'm going to select all of this. As you can see, it also works that way too. So the format painting works in many ways. You can copy font styles, font sizes, spacing, as well as bullets and anything else you can conceive of. So let me go back to the show hide, and there's one last thing I want to show you. is this paragraph then is on the next page. And sometimes what people are doing, and I also used to do this, is you go here and you think, oh, I want this on the previous page. So you hit that backspace or delete, and it's not moving it. And you're thinking, why is that happening? Well, it's because something like this is hard-coded in. So there's a way to get rid of this. This is another reason why you want to keep that little return or paragraph symbol there, is I want to go ahead and select that entire area and see how I have that selected. And then I can just hit the backspace of the delete key on my keyboard and it's gone. And then it's all together. Uncheck the show hide and there we go. So that concludes today's formatting tips I wanted to show you. Come back next time and I'm going to be showing you copy and paste associated with tables and how you can really format tables and make them look nice. So thank you for joining me and hope to see you next time.